Kody Brown, sister wives, all the ongoing drama, court whispers, and controversies. Yes, we are right back into the world of the Brown family. And boy, is there a lot to unpack. So Kody recently shared something that sounded almost like an epiphany, though not quite. He said, "No, no, ownership. I'm only partly to blame." According to him, he had great relationships with all 18 of his kids, at least until the divorces started happening. And in his words, the children became the victims of the split and ended up feeling like they had to choose sides. Since the kids naturally had stronger bonds with their mothers, thanks to polygamy, well, Kody says that's how the distance formed. Now, besties, let me take you back to 8:30 this morning. I had this epiphany, again, that Kody might not be the most forthcoming guy. Just kidding. I have known that since the making of my first video about him. With the Special Forces finale airing this week, Kody popped up in New York talking to the local Fox affiliate on their morning show. They asked him about the intense moments from the show, how the physical challenges compared to the mental ones. Kody insisted that it wasn't the physical stuff that shook him. It was the mental pressure. They even replayed that memorable clip of the drill sergeants confronting him about how he behaved in his marriages and how he handled the fallout from the divorces. And, as usual, they pointed out that Kody wasn't exactly taking responsibility for his role in the family breaking apart. Now, if you've been following along, you remember the episode from a couple of weeks ago? You know, the one where Kody cried and cried some more, talking about ownership. He didn't like admitting he was wrong. Actually, let me refresh your memory of what he said back then. Are you taking ownership right now? My failures were because I didn't know how to be a good dad and husband, though I thought I did. I misunderstood it. I did it wrong in so many ways, and I hated being blamed for it. So I resisted taking responsibility. That resistance, just not wanting to be blamed, that's what held me back. And that's Kody's version. The question is whether that's the truth. You and I may have our own thoughts on that. It's honestly such an adolescent way of looking at things. And yes, I'll take that. You might remember a couple weeks back when I said I didn't believe a single word coming out of Kody's mouth. I said he was using tears to manipulate, making excuses, and leaning on this whole, "I didn't know how to be a father, I hate being wrong" routine. Now, I'll admit, maybe there was a tiny grain of truth in there. I really do believe he hates being wrong. Kody strikes me as the kind of man who feels threatened the moment he has to be vulnerable. If even a little crack shows in that tough guy, hyper-masculine, "I'm the alpha here" image he works so hard to project, well, it shakes him. It chips away at that ego he's carefully built. And let's be real, Kody's a compulsive liar. To me, he's a lot like those kinds of guys we've all encountered in life who distort the truth so much it becomes automatic. Narcissistic, defensive. They're always reconfiguring the narrative to defend themselves. So, when I watched that episode, back at the time, I knew he was lying. There was just no way he was going to change anything. If he were truly taking responsibility, he'd start mending his relationships with his kids. He'd recognize that, as the parent, not the child, the responsibility lands more heavily on him. Children cannot be equally responsible when they're reacting to an adult's choices. And deep down, I knew he wouldn't step up. Then yesterday, in that interview with the two lovely hosts in New York, he went right ahead and proved me right. He straight up admitted he lied. He admitted he wasn't being truthful with the drill sergeants about his role in the family's fractures. And, surprise, surprise, He went back to the same old talking points. It wasn't his fault. The kids were victims of divorce. They had to pick a side. And naturally, he says, because of polygamy, they chose their mothers. Instead of acknowledging his own behavior, he blames the system. Now, sure, polygamy certainly creates complicated dynamics. But let's not pretend Kody's behavior didn't play a major part. If you don't treat your children well, if you don't show care, if you view them like they're extensions of yourself rather than human beings, they won't stick by you. If you belittle them, call them names, or dismiss their feelings, of course they'll pull away. That's not polygamy, that's parenting. Then he said something that left me speechless. He then said, there was just a natural movement that they moved away from me, and that hurt me. I did all that I could, but things got toxic because our flaws were being pointed out on the show. So, according to Kody, the kids moved away because of polygamy, and things got toxic because everybody had a platform to speak openly on the show. Let's stop here. For years, those wives and kids lived under the rule of Kody. He controlled the purse strings, the narrative, and frankly, the family dynamic. He benefited enormously from their silence. The moment they started to speak truthfully, speaking of their experiences, their hurts, he didn't like the sound of it. And that's really what he's saying. The show let them speak, and I don't like it. For him, losing control of the narrative hurts more than losing the relationships themselves. And honestly, if this show is causing him so much stress, tearing apart the relationships and putting constant pressure on the family, here's the simple solution: stop filming. But they won't. The show is still a tool for him, just another way to deflect, just another way to try to twist the story his way. And then it gets even more unbelievable. He says, we were both responsible. But since I was in a military-type situation, the only way to manage it was to take full responsibility. If you're partly culpable, you're fully culpable. So I went into it saying, yes, I was wrong. But actually, it's to be shared with the ex-wives. Classic Kody: deflect, redirect, minimize. The drill instructors were talking about his relationships with his children, his responsibility as a father. And here he is, reframing it as something that should be shared with the ex-wives. Kody actually said it aloud. He was lying. He admitted he had only told the Special Forces instructors what he figured they wanted to hear so he could get out of the moment. Not because he meant a word of it. So what does that tell us? Kody walks into tough situations, reads the room, and says whatever will help him slip through as smooth as possible. Lying to escape discomfort, he then later shifts the blame right onto everyone else. What's most frustrating is that the DSs weren't drilling him about his marriages. They were talking about his role as a father, yet he twisted it into something about the women and shared responsibility. Ownership, equality. What is he talking about? These women lived under his control. They didn't have equal power. They didn't have an equal voice. And when someone is in a submissive role, emotionally, financially, socially, they cannot share blame for the harm done to them. In situations like this, the responsibility always lies with the keeper of the power, Kody. And yes, the wives stayed for years. But many women stay in abusive environments because deeply ingrained belief systems, manipulation, and the cycle of abuse play a part. Leaving isn't easy. Sometimes it takes years, sometimes decades. But the blame never falls on the victim. The person causing the harm is responsible for the harm. Always. Then came the question on everyone's mind. Did he try to make one of the wives sign an NDA? He brushed it off, saying, "Oh, that was just something a lawyer suggested. It wasn't about the show. It was about a business transaction. And again, if you speak Kody, you know exactly what that means. If he says it wasn't about the show, it probably was. Let's break down the real estate NDA excuse for a second. There is no reason whatsoever for an NDA on a property sale. Anything to do with real estate gets recorded publicly with the county. It is public information. You can look it up. I can. Any member of the public can pull the documents right from Coconino County. And we already know from those documents that the narrative on Sister Wives wasn't correct. They made it look like Mary was holding up the property transfer, when in reality, it was Robin who refused to sign because she didn't want to sign an NDA. So, for Kody to insist the NDA had nothing to do with the show? No way. The only reason he'd push for an NDA is to control what could be said publicly, to protect his image and keep the family narrative from unraveling on TV. In the same interview, he also said that he became angry and things became toxic because people pointed fingers and he did not like the criticism. That is his excuse. But here is the truth. Anger can be controlled. Having strong emotions doesn't give a person any license to lash out, yell, or smear people on national television. We are all upset. I mean, look at the frustration many of us have been feeling recently while watching the Epstein case unfold. My husband and I have had conversations at home where we're upset and heartbroken for the survivors. Our voices get a little animated, but we don't attack each other. We don't take it out on anybody. That's normal anger. Kody's reactions, though? That is a temper tantrum from a person who cannot stand being told he is wrong. As long as his version was the only one being told on the show, everything was fine. The wives stayed silent. They played along. They kept the peace. Sure, they whispered frustrations here and there, but nothing like we saw once Christine and then Janelle finally broke away. It wasn't until they stepped out of his control that the real story started to come out. That's what Kody can't handle. And when those first honest voices finally spoke up in the family, the floodgates opened. It was like the wives and adult kids were finally saying, "We're not protecting you anymore." And Kody has never handled that well. What he's really saying between the lines is this: they exposed my real behavior. Yeah, I blow up. Yeah, I get explosive. But none of it is my fault. And no, I don't take responsibility. Not with my kids, not with anyone. I only pretended to take ownership on TV because I didn't want the criticism and needed a quick escape. That's the heart of it. He manipulates conversations to avoid discomfort. Once he's out of the hot seat, he rewrites the story. Now, the best part of the interview, Kurt Menefee. And I only know Kurt from the NFL Sunday show on Fox, which my husband and I watch every weekend. He's really funny. By the end of the interview, Kurt looks at Kody and offers a rather polite-sounding, "Well, it was interesting getting to know you." You could practically see the "what on earth did I just witness?" expression behind his eyes. Subtle, but oh, it was there. And honestly, that's the reaction so many people have around Kody. He even admits that he annoyed the other cast members on Special Forces. He said he called Randall Cobb the wrong name the entire time he was on the show. And during this interview, he kept calling Sean and Andrew East. Sean and Andrew West. And what does he say? "Oh, well, I can't remember names. I just have a big mouth. I talk too much. I keep talking even if no one likes it. That's just me." Meanwhile, Kurt sits there basically saying, "Okay then. Well, bye, Kody." So yes, when Kody's out in the world, people think he's odd, not misunderstood, not deep, just odd. And honestly, that tracks. Now I'm curious. What do you think? Are you surprised that he admitted to lying? Or are you like the rest of us, just nodding and thinking, yep, that's classic Kody Brown? We have all watched this man for years. None of this behavior is new. Do you think he even realizes he exposed himself like that? Tell me in the comments, I really want to know.